My fiancé, Silas Ferrante, was the king of New York's underworld. His reach stretched across all of Latin America. Women flocked to his side without end. I didn't mind it. Every time my fiancé played with his side pieces, I played with their husbands. Our marriage wasn't about love. It was about power. So we'd always respected each other's private lives. Until the day he held his new lover and said, "Don't go finding her fiancé this time. Ivy's fiancé really loves her. After I break up with Ivy, she'll need him to live. I'm only keeping Ivy for 3 months. Just stay quiet for 3 months. If you're jealous, you can get back at me." I choked. Why didn't you say that earlier? I was already with someone else's fiancé, and he was pushing me to break up with Silas so he could become my new husband properly. The day I brought home the marriage annulment papers, I accidentally walked in on Silas and his new mistress. I really didn't mean to. After all, no matter how much Silas fooled around before, he'd never brought anyone home. Ivy was pale as alabaster. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. Face burning with shame, she yanked a thin blanket over herself, like a frightened little rabbit, pure and innocent. Nothing like other women Silas used to go for. Silas lit a cigarette, watching Ivy's retreating back with lazy amusement. "You see," he said casually, "she's timid. Scares easy. Don't go looking for her fiancé to play house with this time. When her fiancé finds out, she'll cry for sure. And I'm not in the mood to coax a little girl out of tears that won't stop. If you're jealous, you can get back at me." I choked again. My lips parted, but nothing came out. Instead, I pulled the envelope from my bag and handed it over. "Take a look. We can talk about anything that doesn't work." Silas looked at my face as he took the envelope. His cold expression actually softened into something tender. "No matter how fun she is, she's just a toy. Not worth your tears." I blinked. Then I realized that he'd mistaken my hesitation for sadness. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I opened my mouth to explain. Actually, crash. A glass shattered upstairs, followed by a short, helpless scream. Silas's brow furrowed. He stood and headed for the stairs. "Leave it. I'll read it." His steps were urgent as he went to soothe his mistress, making whatever I wanted to say feel completely unnecessary. I'd been about to say, "Actually, I came to call off the engagement between the Crow family and the Ferrante family. My engagement to Silas had always been a transaction. He sent his men to protect me and went to war with my half-brother. In the end, I took full control of the Crow family. I stood by his side as his donna and his consigliera, feeding him careful advice for every decision. In the end, he turned the Ferrante family into the most feared mafia in New York's underworld. People stopped calling him boss. They called him Don Ferrante. We'd both reap the rewards. In the Ferrante family's tower, I stood on the 28th floor, looking down at the beautiful New York skyline, and lit a cigarette with wild satisfaction. Silas was smoking the same brand, expensive niche. He raised an eyebrow. "What a coincidence, my Donna. Got a light." I looked up and gave a small smile. The next second he leaned in, cigarette between his lips. The tips touched. Embers sparked. Our eyes locked. Lust ignited. My palms pressed helplessly against the massive floor-to-ceiling window. His broad hand covered mine completely. He pushed into me, strong and unyielding. Our fingers laced together. There was nowhere for me to run. After that, Silas gave me everything a Donna deserved. Tens of millions in stock. Luxury brand bags and jewelry thrown at me like they cost nothing. He was good at sweet-talking me, too. I blamed it on his Italian blood. I thought my years of secret longing had finally come true. Until one day, I walked in on a woman straddling him. She wore a short skirt, her heels kicked off on the table. She wrapped her arms around Silas and sneered at me. "Miss Marlowe, Don Ferrante's pretty strong. Fair's fair, you can borrow my husband anytime, you know." Silas just lay there, eyes half closed and lazy. No guilt whatsoever. I understood what he wasn't saying. We were just a business arrangement. Our marriage wasn't about love, so we shouldn't interfere in each other's private lives. My nails dug into my palms. I had to breathe deep to keep my heart from shattering. A few seconds later, I forced a smile at Silas. "Then I won't hold back." That night, I took that woman's husband to a hotel, one of Silas's properties, and got a room. From then on, whenever Silas played with a mistress, I silently played with her husband. For years we kept up that unspoken understanding. You could say we respected each other. Until I overheard his friend teasing him. That's when I realized I was just a clown. Silas Marlowe spends all that money booking hotel rooms with other women's husbands just to fake an affair. It's almost sad. She pretends she doesn't love you, but we all see it. She's fucking crazy about you. She's had a crush on you for years. Aren't you afraid she'll finally give up and find a real boyfriend? Silas's face was half in shadow, somewhere in a private lounge. His voice was lazy and arrogant. She won't. So the crush I thought I'd hidden so well, they'd all known all along. They knew I was faking being carefree. They knew my wild side was just pride. And my pain? Silas didn't think it was worth caring about. As an adult, I rarely lost control. But that night in that tower, facing the 28th floor window, I poured myself drink after drink. I had a one-night stand with a stranger. Came so hard I cried actual tears. I was laughing and crying like a madwoman. Turns out love and lust really can be separate. But what I didn't expect, after just one-night stand, that stranger wouldn't let me go. Caius kissed the back of my neck. Marlowe, break up with him. Be with me. Caius was in bed every day with red-rimmed eyes, demanding a real commitment. Off the bed, he kept just as close a watch on me. In the short time it took me to get out of the car, go upstairs, and hand the annulment papers to Silas, he'd already sent me a dozen texts. 1 minute late. Got that much to say to your ex-fiancé. 3 minutes late. Need me to come up and make the bed for you too. I got back in the car and scratched him under the chin. Stop being mad. It was a special situation. His handsome face was tight. What special situation could you possibly have with him? I leaned in close. I accidentally walked in on my fiancé and your ex-fiancé in bed. I had to wait for them to finish. I meant to tease him. Caius, are you jealous? He corrected me immediately. Ivy and I were over a long time ago. Who she likes is her business. You know I never had anything with Ivy. I've never been with anyone but you. The man had a deep brow, a straight nose, a gorgeous face, but his eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. No wonder Ivy had chosen him for a business engagement. Watching Caius's lips move, I felt my throat go dry. I licked his Adam's apple. I'm a little hungry. The tips of his ears turned bright red. His throat bobbed hard. But he pushed me away without hesitation. No. He used to give in right away. His refusal surprised me. I raised an eyebrow. Then I saw him grab a thermal container from the side, his face dead serious. You haven't eaten dinner yet. You worked late. Eat first or your stomach will hurt again. My stomach problems came from drinking too much. Back when I was a donna at banquets, I was always drinking. I gave myself a bleeding ulcer once and the damage never went away. Silas never gave it a second thought. But Caius always took it seriously. Warmth seeped into my chest. I lowered my head and ate. After I finished eating, of course we went at it again in the car. From the car all the way into the villa, clothes scattered all over the floor. I had to admit, Caius had terrifying energy. The next morning I woke up to my phone blasting. Donna, we've got a problem. By the time I got to the office, I was cursing under my breath. The company was a luxury brand owned by the Ferrante family, and served as a front for maintaining contact with government officials. We had to keep a perfect image. But on the most important day of the shoot, the model had vanished. I frowned. If you can't reach her, launch plan B. Get another model in. Why are you all just standing around? Not a single employee would meet my eyes. Only my assistant, who knew my real position, spoke up quietly. Donna. Don Ferrante personally approved the model. It's Ivy. Don Ferrante called this morning. He said she'd be running late. In the past, no matter how many mistresses Silas had on the side, he never let them affect our public image. But this time he was openly announcing that Ivy was his current favorite. Everyone was staring at me, openly or otherwise, like needles in my skin. Rage boiled in my blood. I wanted to scream to the whole world that my engagement to Silas was already dead. But until the annulment was official, for the sake of Ferrante and Crow stock prices, I had to hold my tongue. I let out a long deep breath. I remember now, I said slowly. I asked Ivy to deliver some documents to Ferrante. Just put a different model on for now. My employees exchanged glances. All the other models are on location. The photographer suddenly spoke up. Miss Marlowe, with a face and body like yours, you're the obvious choice. Forget finding another model. Just save the day yourself. I thought about it. Caius hadn't left any marks on my skin last night, and shooting a cover actually sounded fun. So I agreed. I slipped into a slightly sexy slip dress, put on some jewelry, and walked into the studio. The photographer kept praising me as we shot. Marlowe, you're gorgeous. Seriously, ever think about becoming a model? The dark mood lifted. The studio filled with laughter. Until someone gasped. Mr. Ferrante, what brings you here in person? Silas walked in with Ivy trailing behind him, looking shy. He glanced at me, half smiling. Why didn't anyone tell me the model was switched? The photographer didn't know anything about the mafia. To him, this was just a normal job. He was the first to explain. Mr. Ferrante, it's just that Miss Sullivan was running way too late. I didn't mean to be late. Ivy glanced at Silas, her face turning bright red. It's just that last night. The photographer scratched his head, missing the subtext completely. We needed the promo photos and video today, so we had to start shooting. The key thing is, Marlowe is a perfect fit. Take a look. Silas's gaze landed on the computer screen. His expression gave nothing away. Oh? Perfect fit for what exactly? The photographer kept going. Great body, great face, great skin, great presence. Perfect fit for everything. Silas lifted his eyelids and smiled, slow and deliberate. This jewelry line targets young women between 20 and 24. An old woman pushing 30. That's your idea of a perfect fit? The entire studio went dead silent. The atmosphere turned to ice. Silas could humiliate me just to please his mistress. But I couldn't afford rumors that hurt the company's image. After all, I still held shares. I opened my mouth, numb and calm. Get Miss Sullivan into makeup. Let her be the model. I headed to the changing room to take off the dress. I just wanted to get out of that damn place. But the zipper got stuck. When someone pushed the door open, I assumed it was the stylist. Come in. Help me with the zipper. The curtain didn't move. No one came in. I was about to wonder what was taking so long when Ivy's soft, sweet voice drifted through. Donna, no rush taking that off. Don Ferrante already had them bring me another piece. After all, I don't like using things that belong to someone else. Feels dirty. That's when I finally got my zipper down. I laughed coldly as I pulled my own clothes back on. Oh? Then Miss Sullivan doesn't feel dirty using a man who's been passed around by God knows how many women. Swish. The curtain yanked open. Ivy's movements had some anger behind them. She pulled her collar open. Her chest was covered in thick purple bruises. Now that Silas wasn't around, she dropped the innocent act and smirked at me. Marlowe, you don't have to be so defensive. Look at this. Don Ferrante can't get enough of me. An old woman like you must be dying of envy. I smiled at her, then pulled out my phone and took a picture. Thanks for the evidence of Silas cheating, Miss Sullivan. Should I send this to all our friends so everyone can enjoy it? She hadn't expected that. She shrieked, scrambling to wrap herself in a blanket. Just then someone called out from outside the room. Donna, Don Ferrante is waiting for you outside. He said, mind the image. I laughed coldly and walked out on my high heels. After leaving the company, I got into Silas's Maybach. Silas was looking at his phone. On the screen was the promo photo they'd just taken of me. Strange man. He'd ordered the photographer to delete everything, but saved a copy for himself. I frowned hard, reaching for my cigarette pack. Instead, I pulled out a lollipop. Caius said I was in bad shape and needed to quit smoking. He stuffed candy in my pockets every day. I popped the lollipop in my mouth. Sweetness spread over my tongue, smoothing out my irritation. I really didn't want to keep playing Silas's games. I just wanted the annulment done. So I said, that document. Did you read it? Silas didn't answer. He was still looking at the photos, even zooming in on details. Was he mocking me? Then he said, since when are you quitting cigarettes? I didn't respond. I just said coldly, That's the annulment agreement. Sign it. Finally, his hand stopped scrolling through the photos. He looked up at me, still wearing that gentle, charming smile. Ivy's just a mistress. You're so mad you want to call off the engagement. I frowned. It doesn't matter how many mistresses you find. I want the engagement annulled. Now. He raised an eyebrow slightly. Why? I told him the truth. My new boyfriend wants to marry me. My princess. Silas chuckled softly. Your acting has gotten a lot better. In the past, his arrogance would have made me furious with shame. But now that I'd let it go, I felt nothing. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket. It had to be Caius texting. Knowing I was alone with Silas, he'd be jealous again. So I added, if there's a problem with the agreement, contact my lawyer, and started to push the door open. But the doors were locked. I frowned and turned back. Silas had already reached out, trapping me between his body and the seat. He leaned in close. So close that the woody scent of him surrounded me, domineering and inescapable. My temples pulsed. I was done. Silas, what the hell are you doing? A cool touch circled my wrist. I looked down. A diamond bracelet covered in gems. A royal antique. I'd seen it at an auction. Starting bid 8 figures. An anonymous collector had won it. Those cheap 5-figure junk from the studio doesn't deserve to grace your wrist. This one's barely acceptable. I froze. After a moment I met Silas's eyes. His blue eyes, inherited from his Italian mother, were deep as the ocean. His voice was as rich as a cello. He kissed my forehead gently and said, Marlo, happy birthday. Over the years I kept dreaming about my 18th birthday. My stepmother set me up. She tried to deliver me to some old man's bed. The one who saved me was a guest at my party, and a member of the Ferrante family. We'd never met before. Everyone else just watched. He was the only one who stepped in. He wrestled a knife away from someone and almost got his palm sliced open. His hand was a bloody mess. I bandaged it with shaking hands, terrified. My tears splashed onto the crooked bandage I just tied. At the party, I heard you like watching fireworks? But instead of talking about what happened, he said, you haven't gotten your birthday gift yet, right? Okay, start counting down. 5, 4, 3. The countdown ended. Right on time, fireworks exploded outside the window. I was completely frozen. And he, like a knight, kissed my index finger and said, don't cry, my princess. Marlo, happy birthday. His smile back then was exactly the same as the smile on his face right now. So many years had passed, but time had left no marks on him. If anything, it had only added depth and charm to his features. For the 5 years I'd been engaged to Silas, this was how he'd always treated me. He loved my devotion. He loved that I adored him. He loved how I put him at the center of my world. But he never truly loved me back. He treated me like a starving dog. Give a little affection, wait for me to come closer. Then pull his hand away and watch me keep waiting. When I stepped back, he gave me hope. When I came close, he shut the door. He never cared what that kind of pulling and pushing did to a person's heart. To him, it was just a game. To me, every time hurts like someone slowly taking my bones apart piece by piece. Silas smiled easily, confident I wouldn't refuse. Too surprised to speak? Helicopter's ready. I'm taking you to an island today. I promised you. I'd never miss your birthday. I opened my mouth to answer. His phone rang. Ivy's voice came through, crying, baby, I fell off the prop shelf. My leg hurt so bad. Silas left a little too quickly. With nothing but an offhand wait for me. I'd waited 5 years. I never got Silas to learn how to love me. Now I was done waiting. After dealing with work, I got home right at dinner time. The moment I opened the door, the smell of roasted chiles, cilantro, tortillas, and slow-braised beef drifted out of the kitchen. The table was covered with dishes I'd grown up eating. Caius stood beside the table, wearing a dark apron. It looked almost comical stretched across his broad shoulders, but somehow I couldn't look away. I heard your mother was Mexican, he said. I found someone to teach me a few dishes. They might not be authentic, though. He handed me a fork. Try it. If you don't like it, I'll find something else next time. Caius Romano, the man who dared to show up late to family meetings and talk back to his elders, had stood in a kitchen just to learn my mother's food. I took a bite. It was a little too salty, but when I swallowed, my throat tightened. It's really good. Caius's eyes lit up immediately. After dinner, he covered my eyes from behind. There's a birthday gift, too. Over the years, the Ferrante family's power had grown, and Silas's gifts had grown more expensive: jewelry, sports cars, private islands, art galleries. I'd had it all. I'd long since passed the age where gifts could impress me. But when Caius let go, I froze. Under the light, deep green gems rested quietly on black velvet. A necklace, earrings, bracelet, ring, brooch, hair combs, and that emerald pendant, the one I'd thought I'd never see again. My mother's collection. After she died, my stepmother sold them behind my back. The set got broken up, piece by piece, into different auctions and private collections. Even I had given up on putting them back together. But now every piece was right in front of me. Caius fumbled to wipe my tears. "Marlo, don't cry." His panicked look made me laugh through my tears. I pressed a soft kiss to his lips. "Thank you." The next second, he stole my breath. He pushed me down onto the couch. I was like a small boat caught in the sea, rising, falling, spinning, no longer in control. I didn't know how long it had been. Then a wave crashed over me. My toes curled. My mind went blank. At the same moment, outside the huge 28th floor window, a magnificent burst of blue fireworks exploded into the night. My phone kept vibrating on the nightstand. I didn't have time to check it. Of course, I didn't see the dozens of missed calls from Silas, or the messages he just sent. "Here's your favorite fireworks. Stop being mad at me. I'm already on the 28th floor. I know you're inside. Open the door. I have other surprises for you. Pick up the phone." "Marlo? Are you really that angry? Still hiding from me? Fine. I'll open the door myself." Caius kissed my trembling eyelids, carefully, preciously. Then the sound of someone keying in the passcode at the door. My whole body went stiff. A second later, the keypad beeped again. Incorrect password. Other than me, the only person who knew this address and could punch in the passcode was Silas. Before, the lock code had been our engagement anniversary, the same for 5 years. Then Caius came along and asked me to change it to our relationship anniversary. So I did. I didn't want Silas barging in on me and Caius in bed. Who I slept with was my own business. But then the sound of someone keying in the code again. That surprised me. Silas was still trying. And of course, another mechanical beep. Incorrect password. The footsteps moved away, fading out. But my phone started buzzing violently. I went to grab it. My wrist was pinned down. My eyes met Caius's dark, heavy pupils. My heart skipped. This man was obedient off the bed. But in bed? All dominance and possessiveness. Caius stared at me. "Don't answer his calls. And don't think about him. Men got so childish once they were in bed." I laughed softly. "Okay." He kissed me again. I woke up the next afternoon. My assistant had texted. The luxury brand company had res-hot the promo video. All the photos and videos of Ivy had been taken down from every platform. Apparently, Silas had ordered it himself. Strange. Then a text from Silas. "Change the 28th floor code back to our engagement anniversary. I've suspended all of Ivy's work. Don't be mad. Call me when you've cooled off." He still thought I was just throwing a tantrum? I laughed coldly and texted back. "Contact my lawyer about the annulment and asset division. Nothing else to discuss." Then I blocked every one of Silas's accounts. I slept a few more hours in the afternoon. Woke up clear-headed. That night I went to the private outdoor pool. When I changed into my swimsuit, I saw it. My whole body was covered in red and purple bite marks. My skin marked easily and took forever to fade. I never let anyone leave that many marks on me. But last night, to keep Caius happy, I'd let him bite me anywhere. At least no one could get in here without my permission. I put on my suit and got in the water. Swam a couple of laps, then lay back on a lounge chair with a glass of wine. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone walking over. Caius had been at his racing club in the afternoon. Said he'd come by at night. I assumed it was him. But it wasn't. It was Ivy. Her eyes raked over me from head to toe like she was cursing every inch. So this is why Silas suddenly dumped me. You're disgusting trash, Marlo. I'd almost forgotten. Silas also had access to this place. Suddenly the water didn't feel clean anymore. Ivy's voice was righteous and aggressive. You knew Silas wouldn't pick you, so you found some guy to put on a show? Pathetic. You'd stoop that low just to make him cut ties with me. How desperate are you, Marlo? Or do you just need to crawl into some old man's bed to prove somebody still wants you? Before I could answer, her sharp, bitter expression vanished, replaced by something almost like confusion. Caius? What are you doing here? Caius walked over and stopped in front of me. He was only wearing swim trunks, broad shoulders, long legs, cut abs. But he was covered in scratch marks and red welts. The kind of marks that trailed all the way down to his V-line. He turned his back to me, that wide solid back like a wall, and said, "Because the man you're talking about is me." The wine almost came out of my nose. For the first time in my life, I saw someone's face go completely blank, like an actual blank expression. After a few seconds, Ivy managed to move her lips. "She's forcing you to stay with her, isn't she?" Caius's answer was just as blunt. "I forced her. I'm the one who likes her." Ivy froze for a good several seconds. Then she ran her fingers through her hair from her crown to the ends, 3 times almost compulsively, before she could finally speak. "We were engaged for 4 years. You never touched me. Not one night. And the first thing you do after we break up is sleep with her." Caius's voice didn't waver at all. "Ivy, don't play the victim." Ivy stiffened. "There was never anything romantic between us. You know it. I know it. She doesn't love you either." Ivy's voice went sharp as she cut him off. "Why do you think she went after you?" "Because I got together with Silas. Because she wanted to get back at me. She thought you and I were still engaged, and that's the only reason she chose you. She doesn't want you. She just wants to humiliate me. You're just a tool to her, Caius." Ivy laughed. A laugh uglier than crying. "Is a woman like that worth throwing yourself at for her to use?" Caius was quiet for a few seconds. Then he looked down at me. Then back at Ivy. "That's still my choice." Ivy broke down sobbing. She'd provoked me so many times. Seeing her like this, I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. People trapped in unrequited love always cry a lot. Just then 3 claps out of place and slow. It was Silas. Silas walked over, his heavy gaze drifting over the exposed skin of my body, his voice giving nothing away. "Marlo, quite the show unfolding here. Why didn't you invite me to watch along?" Back when I was still in love with Silas, in the worst moments, I used to imagine what his face would look like if I really fell in love with someone else. So this was it. This calm, unbothered reaction. Good thing I'd already let go. It didn't hurt. I met his eyes and said, "You heard her. This is Ivy's ex-husband. And my current boyfriend." "Oh." The corner of Silas's mouth curled into a gentle smile. His voice was soft. "So this is the one who's been bothering you? The new boyfriend who wants to marry you?" Caius stepped in front of Silas. His voice was cold. "Leave her alone." The kick came too fast. Caius stumbled and hit the ground. No one saw Silas move. But suddenly he was on top of Caius. Ivy let out a short, startled scream. I shot to my feet. Silas might look like a romantic Italian poet most of the time, but underneath he was meaner than anyone. Silas's lips curved slightly. The smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm talking to my fiancé. Who said you could interrupt?" He drew back his fist for another punch. Caius caught it with his bare hand. Caius was good at boxing. He'd lost the upper hand at the start because he wasn't prepared. But within seconds, the two of them were locked in a brawl. I tried to break it up. They were both seeing red. Neither one listened. Then I saw Silas winding up for a punch aimed straight at Caius's eye. My heart seized. The wine glass in my hand flew at Silas's head before I even knew what I was doing. I pulled Caius up fast. "Are you okay?" My voice panicked. Caius's eyes were steady, soothing. He shook his head. "I'm fine." Then Ivy screamed in my ear. "Silas, you're bleeding." I finally looked at Silas. He pushed Ivy aside. Blood was running down the side of his face from his scalp. A shard of glass had left a small gash on his cheek. Silas was always elegant and composed. The last time I'd seen him this wrecked was 5 years ago. We'd just gotten engaged. The old Don had died. The Ferrante family was tearing itself apart from the inside. His uncle had him under house arrest at a villa, trying to force him out of the succession. I put pressure on his uncle with a business deal on the surface. Behind the scenes, I kidnapped his nephew. When his uncle brought Silas to trade for the kid, his face was dark as thunder. He said coldly, "Silas, a blade that's too sharp at home will cut the hand that holds it." I understood exactly what he meant. I took Silas's hand and smiled back at him. "Don't worry, uncle. Our blade always faces outward." I'd always been ruthless and fiercely protective of my own. It was just that now Silas was on the outside. Silas's face looked truly terrible. Playing around with outside toys is fine. "Marlo, you've had your fun. Time to come home." Home. For 5 years, while Silas ran around with one woman after another, I'd kept waiting for him to come home. That kind of waiting, the kind that cost you your pride, kept reminding me of my mother. She'd waited year after year for my father to come home. In the end, all she got was a parade of mistresses and a parade of illegitimate children. They drove her into depression. She killed herself. I'd always been torn between feeling sorry for her and being angry at her weakness. But then I fell in love with Silas, and I became her. Day by day, I turned into the person I hated most. Now I'd finally clawed my way out, and Silas was telling me to come home. I laughed because it was so absurd it hurt. "Silas, what home? There's no home anymore. Go to the hospital and get your head looked at. Just don't die on me. I don't want to be responsible. And one more thing, sign the annulment papers. Right away." The blood on Silas's head looked gruesome, but he didn't seem to feel it at all. There was no warmth in his eyes. You just got tempted by some trash from outside. But no matter how much you play around, you still come home. Meaning he wouldn't sign. Caius's face went dark. I stopped him before he could move. My voice was calm. "You don't want to end the engagement? Fine. Keep it. But the Ferrante family and the Crow family, the partnerships, the assets, the board seats, all the binding contracts, I can tear it all apart in 6 months." Silas stared at me, stubborn. "So that's what this is about? You don't like me hanging around with those people. You don't like me staying out all night. You don't like Ivy showing up in front of you. Fine. I'll do as you want. For the next 6 months, I'll prove it to you. I'll come home. I'll drop the parties. I'll cut Ivy out of my life completely. Marlo, you're just angry. You're not really going to leave." After everything, his voice still had that arrogance of someone who'd been loved for too long. He was sure he could pull the strings and I'd come running back. Caius's fists clenched so hard his knuckles went white. I smiled. "Oh yeah? Then by all means give it a try." In the days that followed, Silas seemed like a different man. Before, he'd rarely come to the luxury brand company except to meet with politicians. Now he showed up every single day. The first thing he did was fire Ivy. The second thing was follow me into the studio. The new female model was someone I'd picked. But the male model for the watches, that one was still up in the air. They hadn't made a decision yet. The brand's target customer was refined and rakish. Some employee mumbled under their breath. "Honestly, Mr. Ferrante would be perfect," I said. "We're not in a rush this time. Mr. Ferrante, care to give it a try?" Silas loved watches. He had expensive taste. Putting anything under 6 figures on his wrist was practically an insult. But he said, "Okay." Silas looked good wherever he stood. The results were bound to be excellent. I studied the photos with interest, listening to the flood of compliments, then spoke up. "He's good. He's very good. It's just..." I frowned slightly, enunciating every word clearly. "This watch is targeting young men aged 20 to 24. Mr. Ferrante, isn't he a little old for that?" Everyone exchanged glances. No one had ever publicly embarrassed Silas like that. His face went stiff for a few seconds before he recovered. "You make a fair point." I was still smiling when I got back to my office. Caius looked worried I might fall for Ferrante again. "What are you smiling about?" I kissed his eyes. "Just laughing at someone who's getting old." Caius blinked then smiled too. "I'm younger than him." Caius came to my office every day, posing as my cousin. He couldn't avoid running into Silas. Whenever it was just Silas in the hallway, Caius would deliberately pull open his coat collar to show off a few hickeys. I didn't know anything about it. I just noticed Silas smoking more and more. Once during a business discussion I wrinkled my nose. Next time, air out the smoke smell before you come see me. Silas's hand froze on a stack of papers. It's the same brand. The one you always liked. I didn't even look up. I quit. Silas opened his mouth. No words came out. But he still came to the company every day, taking whatever I threw at him. And still he seemed confident he'd win in the end. His arrogance lasted until one night. That night my meeting ran late. Caius had fallen asleep in my office. I walked over to him very carefully. Caius didn't look cute. His face was too fierce for that. But I thought he was adorable anyway. I couldn't help it. I pressed a very light kiss to his forehead. Then I looked up. Silas was standing outside the door watching. He hadn't made that face when I smashed a wine glass over his head. His eyes were lost. He looked like he was in more pain than he could bear. Silas grabbed my wrist out of control. The noise woke Caius. He was on his feet ready to fight in an instant. I let out a long breath and said to Caius, "It's okay. Let me talk to him." One last time. Caius stared at Silas, then slowly unclenched his fists. Maybe the word last got to Silas, because he didn't look calm and untouchable anymore. In the conference room his voice came out rushed. "Marlo, I was wrong before. I got our relationship wrong. Cut him loose. I won't see other women anymore. Let's start over." "Okay." I frowned and opened my mouth. "Why would I start over with you?" "Because we really love each other." He stared at me, his voice hoarse. "Why should two people who really love each other break up?" I looked at him coldly. "You never loved me. Silas, you've only ever loved yourself. Stop pretending to be heartbroken. All this is because you just can't handle that the girl who used to chase after you is finally gone." Silas flinched like my flat gaze was burning him. But he wouldn't look away. His eyes were bloodshot. His throat bobbed painfully a few times before he could speak. "That's not true. I love you, Marlo. I love you." I'd been in love with him for 13 years. For 5 years after the engagement, I'd hated myself while I waited for his love. And now here he was on his knees handing it to me. And I didn't want it. I stated a fact calmly. "But I don't love you anymore. Sign the papers. Soon." I walked toward the door. Silas's voice came from behind me. "Then hate me. That's still better than being a stranger to me." 6 months later, every partnership between the Ferrante family and the Crow family had been dissolved. My engagement to Silas was nothing but a piece of scrap paper. The tower was mine now. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the 28th floor, holding a glass of wine. The TV in the room was playing financial news. A massive accounting hole had been discovered in one of Ferrante's companies. It was on the verge of bankruptcy. When Silas called, I picked up. I expected him to hate me. The Ferrante family had made a lot of enemies. Once I stopped being their consigliera, it was inevitable that some of those enemies would strike. I hadn't warned Silas. I just stood back and watched. But his voice was full of relief, and barely hidden hope. "Marlo, you've always paid back every slight. So why didn't you go for the kill? Why leave Ferrante some assets to survive on? You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to me." His voice shook. "You still love me, don't you?" I looked down from the 28th floor. The people on the street looked tiny. And the past, those times I'd cried silently against this same window, felt very far away now. I let out a breath so soft you could barely hear it. I wasn't sure if I was saying it to Silas or to myself. All these years my feelings for you were always one of two extremes. Sometimes I loved you. Sometimes I hated you. But not once, not for a single second, did my heart ever stop beating for you pathetically. But today, I pressed my hand over my heart and smiled. Today it's finally calm. On my 18th birthday, Silas had saved me from fate. He kept me from ruin, from heartbreak. And now, by leaving the Ferrante family those last surviving assets, I'd repaid him. I said softly, "Now, we're truly even." Silence on the other end of the line. I opened my mouth and closed the door on 13 years of entanglement. "Silas, Let's never see each other again. I hung up. Caius wrapped his arms around me from behind. At that exact moment, fireworks exploded outside the window. Old memories always get buried under new ones. Every day from now on would be brighter than any firework. What happened to Silas? Ferrante was on the edge of bankruptcy. His phone was blowing up from every direction. There was so much he should have been doing. But Silas just went home. Back to the home. His and Marlowe's home. Marlowe was merciless to her enemies, but inside their home, she'd had a surprisingly romantic side. In the beginning, she'd loved decorating the place with little touches. Flowers, rugs, paintings. But later, neither of them had ever come back. Silas hadn't paid attention back then. But now her traces followed him everywhere. Like needles, thousands of needles stabbing through his heart. Silas raised his left hand. He remembered not long after they'd gotten engaged. Marlowe had leaned against his chest, holding his left palm in both hands. She'd examined it with the same curiosity as a kid watching ants. "Silas, your scar looks so long from this angle." She'd stared at it, her lashes trembling slightly. Then she'd kissed his palm, carefully and preciously. The speaker was still playing Marlowe's favorite song. Soft, slow, like a promise that no one was waiting for anymore. Silas sat in the empty room, looking down at his palm. 5 years ago, Marlowe had left a kiss there. He hadn't kissed her back. But now there was nothing in his palm. No kiss from her. No engagement ring. No woman who would always turn around and come back to him. Silas slowly closed his eyes. He lowered his head and kissed his own palm. A late kiss landed where it was supposed to land. No one saw it. And no one would forgive it. Marlowe had once been the easiest person for Silas to keep. But now she was the one he would never get back.
This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.